High above the clouds, where mortals dare not tread, the golden light of Olympus bathed its halls in an eternal glow. The summer solstice feast was in full swing. Nectar flowed like rivers, ambrosia gleamed on golden platters, and the laughter of gods echoed through marble corridors. Zeus, king of the gods, sat upon his throne, surveying the revelry with a mix of pride and wariness. Even Hera, usually distant and regal, had joined the festivities, though her smile carried secrets as dark as the depths of Tartarus. Ares boasted of his latest conquests, while Aphrodite lounged on her golden couch, her beauty outshining even the stars. Hephaestus lingered in the shadows, his scarred hands clutching a goblet of nectar, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Then, in an instant, the warmth drained from the air. The eternal flames flickered and died. Zeus rose from his throne, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. His thunderbolt, the source of his power, the weapon that had secured his throne, was gone. Panic erupted. Dionysus's wine turned to vinegar. Apollo's sun chariot dimmed in the sky. Poseidon's seas churned uncontrollably. Below, mortals felt the chaos first. Storms erupted without warning, lightning struck without command, and the balance of nature itself began to unravel. Whispers spread like poison through Olympus. Some blamed Poseidon, accusing him of coveting his brother's power. Others pointed to Hades, suggesting he had finally emerged from the underworld to claim the sky as his own. The bonds of family, once unbreakable, began to fracture under the weight of suspicion. Ancient grudges resurfaced, and secret alliances formed in the shadowed corners of the divine realm. Deep beneath Olympus, in the depths of Tartarus, the Titans stirred. They sensed the weakness above, their chains cracking as they tested their bonds. The world trembled, and the foundations of Olympus itself seemed to waver. Amid the chaos, three figures stood apart. Athena, goddess of wisdom, her gray eyes calculating every possibility. Hermes, the swift messenger, his winged sandals twitching with nervous energy. And Apollo, god of prophecy, his golden bow gripped tightly in his hands. Zeus's voice thundered through the hall, silencing all. My thunderbolt has been stolen by one among us. The Titans stir, sensing my weakness. Without my weapon, Olympus itself could fall. His gaze fell upon the trio. You three, my most trusted. Find the thief or face eternal exile. You have until the next full moon. The weight of his command settled heavily on their shoulders. Each of them knew the cost of failure. Eternal exile would strip them of their divinity, leaving them to wander the mortal realm as mere shadows of their former glory, powerless and forgotten. Yet, the price of success might be even steeper. Catching the divine thief could shatter the fragile balance of power that held Olympus together. As the gods scattered in hushed whispers, Athena's sharp eyes caught something that sent a chill through her veins. A single feather from Hermes's sandal, lying near Zeus's empty vault. Her gaze flickered between her companions, her mind racing. Could one of them be the thief? And if so, how could she trust either of them to uncover the truth? Hermes's usual mischievous grin was gone, replaced by a shadowed expression as his eyes darted between Athena and Apollo. Apollo, for his part, drummed his fingers nervously against his bow, a tell Athena had never seen in him before. Even she, the goddess of wisdom, found herself second, guessing her every thought. In the treacherous game of divine politics, wisdom could falter, prophecy could deceive, and even speed could lead straight into a trap. The mortal world below was already reeling from the consequences of Zeus's missing thunderbolt. Crops withered under relentless storms, seas devoured coastal villages, and the sun's path wavered dangerously in the sky. The gods' quarrels had always spilled over into the mortal realm. But this was different. This was the beginning of an unraveling that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of creation. Even the fates seemed to hesitate, their golden threads trembling as they wove the uncertain future. The fate of Olympus now rested in their hands, but the greatest danger might be standing right beside them. The Hall of Mirrors stretched endlessly before them, each reflection offering a different version of the truth, or perhaps a lie. Athena led the way through the twisting corridors of Olympus, where even the footsteps of immortals echoed with unease. The air itself seemed heavy with secrets, every breath tasting of deception. Apollo's golden bow gleamed as he traced his fingers along the marble walls, searching for signs of divine interference. Hermes hovered just above the ground, his winged sandals betraying his unease with their constant flutter. Their first stop was Hera's chamber. The queen of gods sat upon her peacock throne, her flawless features as cold as ice. "You dare suspect me?" she asked, her voice sharp as a winter wind. "I, who have endured Zeus's endless infidelities." Her fingers traced idle patterns on the arm of her throne. "Perhaps you should consider how his arrogance blinds him to greater threats." Before they could press further, she dismissed them with a wave that brooked no argument. But as they turned to leave, Athena noticed the faint tremor in Hera's hands, a detail the queen of gods swiftly concealed. They found Ares in the training grounds, his sword slicing through the air as he sparred with invisible foes. When questioned, he let out a laugh, sharp and metallic, like bronze striking stone. "Steal Zeus's toy. If I wanted something, I'd take it by force, not skulk around like a thief." He swung his sword with a flourish, but Apollo's sharp gaze caught something unusual. Fresh scorch marks etched into his shield, as if struck by lightning. The god of war paused, his armor gleaming with an unnatural sheen that made Apollo's brow furrow. Besides, Ares added, running a finger along the edge of his blade, "If I wanted to overthrow Father, I wouldn't need his Thunderbolt to do it." The casual threat lingered in the air, but Athena noticed how his eyes flicked toward the shadows, as if searching for unseen watchers. His confidence felt rehearsed, like a warrior wearing armor that didn't quite fit. The training grounds fell silent as they left, but Apollo lingered, studying the scorch marks with growing unease. "These aren't ordinary burns," he murmured to Athena. "They're fresh, made within hours of the theft." Athena's gray eyes narrowed as she picked up a shard of celestial bronze, melted and twisted into an unnatural shape. Something about its pattern tugged at her memory, but before she could examine it further, a distant explosion from Hephaestus's forge pulled them away. The forge of Hephaestus was a cacophony of fire and metal, smoke curling into the air as sparks danced like fireflies. The lame god barely glanced up from his work, his hammer falling in a steady rhythm. "Come to accuse the cripple?" he sneered. How predictable. But behind him, half hidden by shadows and unfinished creations, lay something that made Hermes freeze, the unmistakable outline of a thunderbolt, incomplete but unmistakable. As they left the forge, Athena pulled a golden feather from her robes, holding it up to the light. "Found this by Zeus's vault," she said, her eyes locking onto Hermes. "Curious, isn't it? The same color as your sandals." The messenger god's face remained impassive, but his wings twitched, a tell he couldn't suppress. "Feathers fall where the wind takes them," Hermes replied, though his voice lacked its usual playful edge. His fingers drummed against his caduceus, a nervous habit he'd carried since Zeus first tasked him with delivering divine messages. Each tap echoed through the forge like distant thunder, a reminder of what they'd lost. The feather spun between Athena's fingers, catching the light like a golden compass needle. Tiny symbols, divine signatures, glinted with each turn. Hermes watched it, his usual smirk replaced by something darker, more contemplative. The air grew heavy with unspoken accusations, and even Apollo's radiant presence seemed to dim under the weight of suspicion. "Are you accusing me, Athena?" Hermes asked softly, his voice edged with danger. Apollo stepped between them, tension crackling like the air before a storm. But Athena merely smiled, though her eyes remained cold. "I'm not accusing anyone, yet, but someone's lying to us, and lies cast long shadows." Athena's piercing gaze pinned Hermes in place. His usual smirk faltered as he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was there," he admitted, "but not to steal. I saw something, someone. A figure moving through the shadows, with wings and a limp." The weight of his confession hung heavy in the air. Hermes, the god of wit and trickery, now spoke with uncharacteristic hesitation. His sandals, which usually hovered above the ground, rested firmly on the marble floor, a rare sign of vulnerability. Apollo's hand instinctively reached for his bow. "Wings and a limp. Why didn't you say something sooner?" Athena raised a hand, silencing him. Her gray eyes bore into Hermes like an owl hunting in the dead of night. Because, Hermes continued, his voice steadying, I followed the figure. It led me straight to Hephaestus's forge. I thought I had my culprit, but when I arrived, the figure was gone. The trio stormed into Hephaestus's forge, where the god of craftsmanship hammered away at his anvil. This time, Athena approached with a new demand. Show us your wings, Hephaestus, she commanded. The mechanical ones you built to overcome your lameness. Hephaestus let out a deep, rumbling laugh, so the truth comes out. He pulled aside a heavy curtain, revealing a pair of bronze wings mounted on the wall. Look closely, wise one. See how they've rusted. Unused for centuries. But yes, I am building a replacement for Zeus's Thunderbolt. The forge's heat seemed to intensify as Hephaestus stepped closer, his uneven gait echoing through the chamber. Scattered across his workbench were fragments of celestial bronze, each piece meticulously shaped to channel divine power. The half-formed Thunderbolt pulsed with an eerie glow, its destructive potential unmistakable. Athena's mind raced. A second Thunderbolt could fracture Olympus's power, creating a rival to Zeus himself. The thought sent ripples through the divine ether, and distant lightning cracked across the mortal world below. Mortals would suffer most if gods waged war with such weapons. Their prayers already echoed with desperation as Zeus's weakening grip on the heavens unraveled the natural order. You admit to treason. Apollo's voice rang with disbelief. Treason. Hephaestus spat. I call it insurance. Zeus is unfit to rule. His power has corrupted him. Someone needs to be ready when he falls. The god of craft turned back to his work, his dismissal clear. The words hung in the air like smoke from the forge, heavy with centuries of resentment. Apollo shifted uncomfortably, recalling the countless times Zeus had mocked Hephaestus's lameness and dismissed his craftsmanship. Even Athena, known for her unwavering loyalty to Zeus, stood silent. Hephaestus's bitter words hung heavy in the air, undeniable yet unspoken. As they left the forge, Apollo suddenly stopped, his sharp eyes narrowing. Wait, he said, turning back to the mechanical wings. The rust. It's too perfect. These wings have never flown. They've never even moved. Hermes's description of the shadowy figure, wings and a limp, collided with this revelation. Someone else had mimicked those traits that night. Someone else was pulling the strings. Athena's fingers brushed the wall where the wings hung, her mind racing. Every god on Olympus had grievances against Zeus. But who would risk everything? The theft required not just cunning, but an intimate knowledge of Olympus's defenses. Worse, the thief had anticipated their every move, weaving a web of false trails and misdirection. They weren't just chasing a thief, they were pawns in a game orchestrated by someone who knew them too well. The trio exchanged uneasy glances, each wrestling with their own suspicions. Apollo's fingers tapped restlessly against his bow, a nervous tic he developed since the theft. Hermes, usually brimming with confidence, paced the forge's shadows, his energy restless and uncontained. Even Athena's legendary composure faltered. Her owl, perched nearby, mirrored her agitation with sharp, darting movements. They had followed every lead, examined every clue, yet the truth felt further away than ever. The thief wasn't just clever, they were playing a game designed to fracture the gods themselves. Thunder rumbled overhead, a grim reminder of their dwindling time. Zeus's patience, like his power, was fading. And somewhere in Olympus, the thief watched, a smile playing on their lips as the gods chased shadows. Apollo knelt beside a young girl, her skin pale and cold from the floodwaters that had swallowed her village. His healing touch brought warmth back to her cheeks, but his gaze fixed on something glinting in the mud, a shard of celestial bronze, its divine light unmistakable even through the grime. He recognized the craftsmanship instantly. It came from Ares's temple. The destruction stretched far beyond the village. Without Zeus's thunderbolt to maintain the balance of nature, chaos reigned. Storm darkened skies, bled into the sea, waves devoured coastlines, and mortals huddled in terror, their prayers falling on deaf ears. Apollo's heart ached as he watched a mother clutch her child, their tears mingling with the rain. These were the true victims of divine politics, paying the price for celestial theft with their lives. They found Ares at the shoreline, locked in combat with a massive sea serpent. The war god's sword flashed as he roared, "I don't steal, I conquer!" But the shard of bronze in Apollo's hand told a different story. Someone was framing Ares, and the stakes were higher than ever. His sword flashed like lightning as he clashed with the beast, Poseidon's latest ploy to exploit the chaos. Ares's muscles strained against the serpent's crushing coils, his battle cry roaring louder than the thunder above. When the creature finally retreated into the depths, the war god turned to face his divine visitors, his armor splattered with blood, both his and the monsters. "Come to accuse me," he growled, his sharp eyes catching the glint of the bronze shard in Apollo's hand. Athena stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "This was found in a flooded village. The craftsmanship bears your mark, brother." Ares let out a bitter laugh. "I don't steal," he snarled, gesturing to the churning sea. "I conquer. While you play detective, Poseidon tests our borders, the Titans rattle their chains, and mortals die. But sure, let's waste time on a piece of metal." Apollo's golden eyes flickered as he examined the shard. "The bronze carries your signature, but the work is flawed. Whoever forged this studied your style closely, but missed the finer details only a master would notice." He traced the imperfect engravings with a finger. A clever deception, but not clever enough. Athena's brow furrowed as she turned the shard over in the storm light. The breaks were too clean, the placement too deliberate. This wasn't evidence, it was a trap. "Someone's playing us," she said, her voice sharp with realization. "This shard was planted. They wanted us to suspect you, Ares. But who gains from framing you?" The waves crashed harder against the shore, as if echoing the tension between the gods. Hermes paced the beach, his winged sandals leaving no trace in the wet sand. "Every lead we follow splinters into more questions. The thief isn't just hiding the Thunderbolt, they're weaving a web of suspicion around us all." Ares's eyes narrowed, finally asking the right question. "Sister, while you've been chasing thieves, I've been fighting Poseidon's monsters. But ask yourself, why would he send them now? Unless he knows something we don't." Hermes finished, his mind racing. "Or someone wants us distracted while the real plan unfolds." Athena's awl circled overhead, its cry cutting through the storm. She watched it with unease, knowing it sensed something beyond their mortal sight. These attacks aren't random. Each monster, each flood, they're not just chaos. They're distractions, drawing our attention while something darker takes shape. The serpent's attack had left more than physical wounds. In its thrashing, it had revealed ancient markings on the seafloor, symbols unseen since the first Titan War. Athena traced them in her mind, piecing together patterns that spoke of an uprising far more organized than mere chaos. These weren't desperate strikes of opportunity. They were calculated steps in a plan set in motion long before the Thunderbolt vanished. Thunder rumbled overhead, weaker than before. Zeus's power waned with each passing moment, and the fragile barriers holding back forces far darker than a sea serpent began to crumble. Time was slipping through their fingers. Apollo stared at the planted evidence in his hand, the weight of their discovery pressing down on him. Their investigation had only scratched the surface of a conspiracy that ran deeper than they'd imagined. The haunting melody drifted through the halls of Olympus, like morning mist, ethereal and familiar. Terpsichore, the muse of dance, moved with a grace that seemed to defy the very air around her. Her steps painted a story. Shadows dancing, wings rustling, secrets whispered. The trio watched, transfixed, as her dance unraveled the threads of that fateful night. Hermes noticed how her movements mirrored the guard rotations around Zeus's chambers, while Apollo's sharp eyes followed the path of fleeing footsteps traced by her hands. "This tune," Terpsichore explained, her voice as melodic as her dance, "a code from Zeus's chambers just before the darkness fell. It's a song I've only heard in Aphrodite's gardens when her doves call to their lovers at twilight." Apollo's fingers twitched, itching to pluck the strings of his lyre to match the melody. But Athena's sharp intake of breath stopped him cold. Aphrodite's doves. She claimed to be in her temple that night. They found the goddess of love in her chambers, her radiant beauty dimmed by distress. Tears like liquid crystal traced delicate paths down her flawless cheeks. "Yes, I lied," she admitted before they could speak. "I wasn't in my temple. I was meeting someone?" "Hades," Hermes said, his tone more statement than question. Your tears betray more than grief, Aphrodite. They carry the chill of the underworld. Aphrodite's fingers trembled as she clutched her golden shawl tighter, its shimmering fabric glowing faintly, as if trying to shield her from their scrutiny. Yet even her legendary beauty couldn't mask the guilt shadowing her features. Love blinds, Hermes quipped with a smirk, but his sharp eyes caught Athena's sudden movement. The goddess of wisdom stepped closer, her gaze fixed on something in Aphrodite's elaborately braided hair. A black rose. Athena observed, her voice tight with suspicion. Grown only in Hades' personal gardens. You weren't just meeting him. You were in the underworld itself. Aphrodite's composure faltered further. You don't understand. There are forces at work beyond your comprehension. Hades, he warned me. Her voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with the weight of prophecy. The balance of power shifts like sand in an hourglass. Even gods must sometimes choose between love and duty. She turned away, but not before they glimpsed something like fear in her immortal eyes. Warned you of what? Apollo demanded, though the revelation unsettled him deeply. Wait. Hades can't enter Olympus. The ancient laws bind him to his realm. Unless someone brought a piece of his realm here, Athena finished, her gaze lingering on the black rose with newfound understanding. This flower, it's more than a token of affection, isn't it? It's a key, a way to blur the lines between worlds. Aphrodite's silence was answer enough. The black rose in her hand seemed to drink in the light, its petals casting faint shadows that danced like the darkness that had swallowed Zeus's thunderbolt. Apollo reached for it, but Athena caught his wrist. Brother, remember the old tales. Nothing from the underworld comes without a price. The rose pulsed faintly, its rhythm matching the haunting melody Terpsichore had shared. Around them, the air grew heavy, thick with the scent of secrets and decay. We need to speak with Hades, Hermes said, his winged sandals already twitching with restless energy, but barging into his realm uninvited as a death sentence. Aphrodite murmured, another tear slipping down her cheek, and maybe that's exactly what someone wants. Her words hung in the air, sharp and cold, sending a shiver through even their immortal veins. Hermes's hand instinctively tightened around his caduceus, its serpents coiling tighter, as if sensing the rising tension. Athena's awl swept through an open window, its cry a stark reminder that time was slipping away. Somewhere in the distance, a mortal scream echoed, a prayer unanswered, a plea ignored. Without Zeus's power to hold the balance, the bond between gods and mortals was unraveling like an ancient tapestry. The black rose in Athena's hand crumbled suddenly, disintegrating into ash, leaving behind only the faint, sickly, sweet scent of pomegranates and rot. Above them, thunder rumbled weakly, like the dying breath of a god. The river Styx stretched before them, its dark waters whispering secrets older than Olympus itself. Charon's skeletal figure emerged from the mist, his hollow eyes fixed on the three gods standing at the shore. Payment, he rasped, extending a bony hand. Hermes stepped forward, unclasping his caduceus, the symbol of his divine authority. Will this suffice, ferryman? My power for your silence. The boatman's fingers closed around the staff, and a flicker of recognition lit his empty gaze. The messenger god, trading his wings for answers. Desperate times indeed. The journey across the Styx was eerily silent, broken only by the soft lapping of dark water against the boat. Shadows reached for them like greedy hands, but Athena's wisdom held them at bay, while Apollo's faint glow carved a fragile path through the gloom. The air grew colder with each passing moment, the weight of the underworld pressing down on them. Bones crunched beneath their feet as they stepped onto the shore, and the wails of lost souls echoed through the twisted corridors. Even Apollo's divine light seemed to shrink from the oppressive darkness. Hermes clutched his caduceus tighter, its serpents writhing uneasily. Something's wrong, he whispered. The dead, they're restless. Athena nodded grimly. They feel the imbalance above. Without Zeus's thunderbolt, the barriers between realms are crumbling. The Hades awaited them in his throne room, lounging on a seat of polished obsidian. His smile was as cold as a midwinter night. Ah, my unexpected guests, have you come to accuse me of theft as well? Hades asked, his voice dripping with mockery. We follow the trail of your roses, Athena replied, her tone unwavering. And the whispers of your meetings with Aphrodite. Clever Athena, Hades mused, a sly smile playing on his lips, always seeing pattern. But have you considered that sometimes the obvious path is meant to mislead? He rose from his throne, his dark robes flowing like liquid shadow. The Furies saw something that night. A figure fleeing Olympus, cloaked in starlight. The three gods exchanged uneasy glances. Hades was a master of manipulation, weaving truths with lies until they became indistinguishable. Yet there was a chilling certainty in his words. The shadows in the throne room seemed to lean closer, as if eager to witness their growing doubt. Apollo's breath hitched. Starlight. That's Artemis's domain. Indeed, Hades confirmed, his voice laced with dark amusement. Your twin sister, master of the hunt, guardian of the night. How convenient that no one thought to question her. You lie. Apollo snapped, though a flicker of doubt crept into his voice. Do I? Hades gestured, and images materialized in the air. A figure darting through Olympus's halls, trailing silver light like a comet's tail. The dead cannot lie, godling, and my realm sees all truths in the end. But why? Hermes demanded, his voice sharp. What could Artemis gain from such a theft? Hades' smile widened, revealing teeth as sharp as funeral daggers. Perhaps you should ask yourself what she might lose instead. The moon's power wanes while Olympus struggles, and in that weakness, he left the thought unfinished, letting it hang in the stale air like a noose. As they turned to leave, Hermes retrieved his caduceus from Charon, but something felt off. The staff was heavier, tainted. Apollo reached for it, then jerked back with a gasp of pain. Brother! Athena caught him as he stumbled. A single black thorn had pierced his finger. A thorn from Aphrodite's rose, somehow entwined with the caduceus. Trust no one. Apollo managed through gritted teeth as poison spread through his divine veins. His golden light flickered like a candle in a storm. The venom worked swiftly, dark tendrils creeping through Apollo's immortal form. His radiant skin, once glowing like the sun, now took on the pallor of twilight. Athena's mind raced through countless remedies, but this was no ordinary poison. It carried the essence of the underworld itself, designed to bring even the mightiest of gods to their knees. As his consciousness began to fade, Apollo's last coherent thought was of his sister. Could Artemis truly have betrayed them all? The question burned in his mind like acid, even as darkness crept at the edges of his vision. Behind them, Hades' laughter echoed through the caverns of the dead, a sound that suggested he knew far more than he had revealed. The underworld seemed eager to claim another god, if only for a moment. Apollo thrashed on his golden bed in the halls of Olympus, his skin burning with an unnatural fever. Divine light flickered beneath Apollo's skin, erratic and wild, like a storm trapped within his veins. His face, usually radiant, twisted in agony as visions overtook him. A sunless dawn, he murmured, his voice trembling. The thief wears shadows like a crown, but the shadows lie. They all lie. Athena pressed a damp cloth to his burning forehead, her sharp gray eyes scanning his every word for meaning. Apollo's fevered ramblings might hold the key, if only she could unravel them. Hermes paced nearby, his steps heavy without the lightness of his winged sandals. The poison from Aphrodite's rose had taken hold swiftly, even for an immortal. Apollo's breaths grew shallow, his golden glow dimming like a dying star. Hermes had tried every remedy he knew, and Athena had scoured ancient scrolls, but nothing could halt the venom's relentless spread. The chamber doors burst open with a gust of icy wind. Artemis stood in the doorway, her bow drawn and aimed squarely at Hermes. Moonlight seemed to coil around her, sharp and unyielding. What poison courses through my brother? She demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. What schemes are you weaving while Olympus falls to ruin? Hermes raised his hands cautiously. We found traces of starlight at the scene of the theft, he explained. Artemis's laugh was cold and biting. So you accuse me. While I hunt monsters to protect mortals, you chase shadows. I don't steal from gods. I destroy their enemies. But Athena's gaze had already locked onto Artemis's quiver. Among the silver arrows, 3 stood out, their tips shaped like miniature thunderbolts, crackling with a familiar, dangerous energy. Those arrows, Athena said quietly, they carry Zeus's power, gifts, Artemis snapped, "From before the theft. Ask him yourself, if you can find him in his disgrace. And where were you when the vault was breached?" Hermes challenged, stepping between the twins. The moon was dark that night. Artemis's grip tightened on her bowstring. "I was hunting monsters near Thessaly. 100 mortals can vouch for me. But you, Hermes, always flitting about, always unseen. How convenient." The air between them crackled with tension, centuries of rivalry simmering to the surface. Athena watched them both, her mind racing as she weighed their words against the mounting evidence. The unspoken accusation hung heavy, punctuated by a distant roll of thunder. Artemis lowered her bow slightly, her silver eyes narrowing. "You speak of witnesses, brother. But what of your own movements? I've seen you skulking through Olympus, whispering with Hades. Did you think no one would notice?" Apollo's voice rose again, delirious and urgent. "Sister in silver, brother in gold. One speaks truth while lies unfold." Hermes leaned closer to Athena, his voice barely audible. "What if we're missing the obvious? You're Zeus's favorite, his strategist. Who better to outsmart the king of gods than his wisest daughter?" For the first time since the Thunderbolt vanished, doubt flickered in Athena's eyes. She stared at her hands, as if they might reveal a guilt she couldn't recall. Her mind raced with plans within plans. But was one of them her own scheme against her father? She remembered every council meeting, every whispered conversation with Zeus. Had she been gathering intelligence all along, unknowingly preparing for this moment? The thought sent a chill through her. Gods were known to act on plans buried so deep even they forgot them, their divine minds weaving deceptions that became truth. The weight of her power pressed against her temples. Every action of a god carried layers of meaning, every choice rippling through eternity. Even now, she might be playing a part in a plan she'd crafted eons ago, waiting for this precise moment to unfold. She began, but Apollo's scream cut her off. "The owl flies blind! The serpent sheds its skin! Trust shatters like waves against stone!" Outside, thunder rumbled across a sky that no longer recognized its master. Far below, mortals prayed to gods who were becoming as lost as they were. Deep within the volcanic forges of Olympus, Hephaestus's hammer fell silent. The god of the forge turned to face his visitors, his misshapen form casting long shadows in the firelight. The heat from his forge had seeped into the very walls of his sanctuary, turning them into sheets of living metal that pulsed with each breath of the bellows. His tools, forged from materials that would melt lesser implements, hung in perfect order along the walls, their surfaces reflecting the eternal dance of flames. "I built a vault," he admitted, wiping soot from his hands. "One only Athena could open. Zeus demanded it, a failsafe if his power ever faltered." Athena's eyes narrowed. "You never told me." It wasn't finished when the Thunderbolt vanished. Hephaestus limped to a far wall, pressing his palm against the heated metal. Gears turned, locks clicked, and a hidden door swung open. Inside, evidence lay arranged with deliberate care. Ares' shield, its surface scarred by lightning burns. Beside it, a delicate golden bracelet. Hera's. "Your brother's shield speaks of battle," Hephaestus mused, addressing Athena, "but your stepmother's jewelry, that whispers of conspiracy." They found Hera in her private chambers, her composure crumbling as she was confronted with the bracelet. "Millennia!" she spat. Millennia of his infidelities, his arrogance, his contempt. "Do you think I wouldn't seek justice?" Her words echoed through the marble halls, each syllable heavy with centuries of bitterness. The peacocks in her garden scattered at the sound of her rage, their feathers falling like rain in the golden light of Olympus. But Athena had learned from countless diplomatic missions that the loudest protests often hid the quietest deceptions. Something in Hera's outburst felt hollow. Athena scanned the room as Hera raged. There, behind a tapestry of Zeus's rise to power, a hidden compartment. Within the hidden compartment, letters lay on Titan-forged parchment, sealed with drops of frozen fire. "Love letters," Hermes murmured, reading over Athena's shoulder. "To Prometheus, the Titan who defied Zeus to give fire to mortals." Athena said, her voice low. "The one Zeus condemned to eternal torment." Hera's fury melted into icy stillness. The queen of the gods stood like a statue, her flawless features carved from living marble, but her eyes betrayed a sharp, calculating mind that sent a chill through even Athena. The air around them grew heavy with divine energy, making mortal instruments crackle and magical artifacts hum with power. It was Hephaestus who spotted the final clue. On the vault's lock, faint golden fingerprints glowed, sticky residue that could only come from one source. "Ambrosia," he said, his voice grim. "The food of the gods. Whoever did this wasn't hiding. They were mocking us." The revelation rippled through the chamber, like a stone dropped into still water. Every immortal left their mark in unique ways. Poseidon's touch carried the salt of the sea, Demeter's fingers left traces of golden harvest, and Zeus's hands crackled with the remnants of lightning. These marks were more than identifiers. They were windows into intent. A trembling hand might leave chaotic swirls, while a determined one pressed firm, deliberate patterns. Each mark told a story of hesitation or resolve, stealth or boldness, and somewhere in these golden whorls lay the truth of the Thunderbolt's theft. If only they could decipher it. Athena traced the prints, her mind racing. Every god consumed ambrosia, but each left a distinct trace. These prints pulsed with chaos, with a wild energy that defied order. The spirals twisted in impossible geometries, mirroring the unpredictable nature of their owner. The residue spoke of revelry and madness, of wisdom found in the depths of divine intoxication. The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. Who else could move through Olympus unnoticed, his drunken gait dismissed, his presence at odd hours excused by endless celebration? Who else could orchestrate such chaos but the god of wine and madness himself, Dionysus? Athena whispered, her voice barely audible over the thunder that shook Olympus to its core. Following the trail of ambrosia-stained footprints, the gods found Dionysus in his private grove. Wine flowed freely from enchanted fountains, and maenads danced in wild abandon around him. His laughter rang out, sharp and knowing, as nymphs scattered into mist at the god's approach. The air was thick with magic, and something darker. Vines coiled and uncoiled around marble columns, moving with an unsettling intelligence. The scent of betrayal hung heavy, mingling with the intoxicating aroma of wine. The noble investigators arrive. Dionysus drawled, raising a golden cup with a smirk. "Care for a drink? It might help you see more clearly." "We see clearly enough." Athena shot back, her spear gleaming in the dim light. "The ambrosia traces, the chaos in the mortal realm, it all leads to you." Dionysus's smile widened, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Sleever Athena. But you're following breadcrumbs while missing the feast." He gestured sharply, and the maenads' dancing ceased. In the sudden silence, a low, ominous rumbling grew louder. The Thunderbolt, a trinket, a distraction. What matters is the chaos it unleashed. He rose from his throne of twisted vines, his gaze reflecting the madness of a time before the gods. "Did you really think Zeus's rule would last forever?" The old ones stir. They remember when chaos reigned, when power flowed like wine. His fingers traced patterns in the air, leaving trails of purple fire that crackled with ancient energy. And soon, very soon, they'll remember what freedom tastes like. The ground beneath them trembled. Through jagged cracks in the earth, ancient voices rose, deep, guttural, and filled with rage. The Titans stirring in their prison. "You made a deal with them," Apollo accused, his voice sharp. "They understand what you've forgotten. True power comes from disorder, not Zeus's precious order." The grove darkened as unnatural clouds gathered overhead. Lightning flashed, but it was wrong, sickly green and jagged, like broken bones in the sky. The maenads began to chant in a language older than the gods themselves, their voices rising with the wind. Apollo felt his divinity recoil from the sound, a cold dread creeping into his chest. The maenads' dance grew frenzied, their feet leaving scorch marks on the sacred ground. Each step seemed to tear at the fabric of reality, widening the cracks between worlds. Shadows took form, not ordinary shadows, but the elongated silhouettes of beings imprisoned since the dawn of time. The air itself seemed to age, carrying the musty breath of Tartarus. Before anyone could act, Hermes stepped forward, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his confession. "Stop." It wasn't him. His voice cracked, raw with guilt. "It was me?" Athena turned, her sharp eyes narrowing in disbelief. You. I stole the Thunderbolt to trade with Hades. Hermes admitted, tears streaming down his face. My love, immortal, died last spring. Hades promised her return, but his price was Zeus's power. He choked on the words. I never meant for the Titans to break free. I didn't know it would weaken the barriers of Tartarus. Love makes fools of us all, Athena whispered, her voice heavy with sorrow rather than judgment. She had seen too many immortals, brought low by mortal hearts. The weight of centuries pressed down on them all. Every loss, every betrayal, every moment of weakness that had led them here. Fool. Dionysus laughed, his voice dripping with mockery. You played perfectly into their hands. Into mine. Ancient runes began to glow beneath their feet, pulsing with a sickly light that matched the corrupted lightning above. Dionysus raised his Tharsis, and where it struck the ground, reality fractured like broken glass. The god of wine and madness had played his part well, weaving chaos while the others chased shadows and false trails. Each tremor that shook Olympus was another chain snapping in the depths of Tartarus. The ground cracked open, and massive hands clawed their way toward freedom. The Titans were rising. Apollo, still weak from the poison, staggered forward, his fingers tightening around the recovered Thunderbolt. Divine energy crackled, searing his skin. We have one chance, he gasped, his voice strained. But the price? The Thunderbolt pulsed with raw power, searching for its true master. Zeus was nowhere to be found, and Apollo knew what wielding such energy would cost him. His immortality flickered like a dying flame. Visions flashed before his eyes. Sunsets he would never witness, songs he would never compose, centuries that would pass without him. Yet, in that moment, as the fate of Olympus hung in the balance, he understood what it truly meant to be a god. He could feel his divine essence unraveling, thread by golden thread, as the Thunderbolt's power sought a vessel worthy of its might. The weapon of Zeus had never been meant for lesser gods. It was forged from the essence of sovereignty itself. To use it would burn away everything that made him immortal. But perhaps that was the ultimate test of godhood, the willingness to sacrifice it all for something greater than oneself. Athena saw the resolve in his eyes. Apollo? No. But Olympus was already ablaze. Apollo stood at the edge of the divine realm, the Thunderbolt blazing in his hands. Each spark burned away another fragment of his immortality. Below, the Titans clawed their way from Tartarus, their shadows stretching across the mortal world. The fate of both realms teetered on the edge. Every passing moment brought the Titans closer to breaching the divine barrier, their colossal forms casting darkness over the cities below. Apollo felt the weight of countless lives, divine and mortal, pressing against his consciousness. His father's weapon hummed with ancient power, calling to him with promises of glory and ruin. Brother, please. Artemis pleaded, reaching for him. There must be another way. There isn't. Apollo's voice was steady, despite the pain coursing through him. Sometimes the price of saving everything is losing yourself. He raised the Thunderbolt high. Golden light erupted from his body as he channeled Zeus's power. The weapon recognized him not as a god, but as a vessel willing to sacrifice everything. Lightning split the sky, striking each Titan with the precision of Apollo's archery. Their screams shook the foundations of Olympus. One by one, they fell back into their prison. But with each victory, Apollo's glow dimmed. His immortal essence burned away like mist under the morning sun. When the last Titan fell, Apollo collapsed. His skin no longer shimmered with divine light. His heart beat, mortal, fragile, human. The assembled gods watched in stunned silence as Apollo's transformation completed. Where once stood a being of radiant light and divine power, now lay a man, still beautiful, but stripped of his eternal glow. Artemis cradled her brother's head, her tears falling like stars onto his face. For the first time in her immortal existence, she felt the icy grip of fear, not for herself, but for the fragile life that now pulsed beneath her fingers. Apollo's eyes fluttered open, their golden brilliance replaced by a mundane blue. A faint smile crossed his lips as he whispered, "The music, I can still hear it. Different now. Mortal songs have their own kind of beauty." Hermes knelt before Zeus, his wings already molting, feathers drifting to the ground like fallen leaves. Father, I. Silence. Zeus's voice thundered, cutting him off. You betrayed Olympus for love. Now you'll walk the earth you cherished so much. Wingless, powerless, haunted by what you've done, Athena watched her former companion descend to the mortal world. His shoulders bowed under the weight of exile. She turned to Zeus, her wise eyes heavy with understanding. The Thunderbolt shines brighter now, she said softly, but its light reveals truths we tried to ignore. Distrust divided us. Pride blinded us. Never again. Zeus nodded, his face aged by weakness, humbled by his children's sacrifice. The age of absolute power is over. Even gods must learn to trust. The other gods shifted uneasily, their immortal faces marked by shame and revelation. Aphrodite's perfect features crumpled in genuine grief, while Ares looked away, his warrior's pride unable to bear the sight of such noble sacrifice. Even Hades, watching from the shadows of his dark realm, felt the weight of change rippling through the divine order. Dionysus set aside his ever-present wine cup, sobriety etching itself across his features. We've been children playing with lightning, he mused, never questioning the price of power. But as Athena gazed across the restored Olympus, she saw new shadows lengthening. The Thunderbolt's light cast darker shapes now, whispers of future betrayals, of powers yet untested, of choices yet unmade. The newly mortal Apollo rose shakily to his feet, supported by his sister. His first steps as a human were unsteady, but his head remained high. I choose this, he declared, his voice carrying only a fraction of its former power, but somehow more compelling in its humanity. Let my sacrifice stand as a reminder that divinity means nothing without compassion. The assembled gods watched as Apollo took those first mortal steps, each movement a testament to both fragility and strength. In his eyes, they saw not defeat, but a different kind of victory, one born not of lightning and thunder, but of sacrifice and understanding. Perhaps this, they realized, was the true meaning of power, or even in victory. The gods had learned their hardest lesson. Sometimes the greatest threats come not from ancient enemies, but from the darkness within their own hearts.